Open. On October 1st, I analyzed number one, instinct. Where does instinct come from, and how it's related to rudimentary action? And number two, the origin of pain, which is decision. Could be an unconscious, maybe a conscious decision that becomes unconscious, but it's a decision. On October 4th, I kind of noticed that, sometimes I stay away from certain techniques because I stay away from moving forward because I feel like I need to figure something out. And this feeling, I get it by instinct, that I feel like I need to figure something out. And the thing that I feel like I need to figure out on October 4th was this: how to control enchantment. Because there are certain techniques that I came up with that would get rid of pain. But I feel like I didn't want to get rid of pain because pain, as I agreed before, it's raw power if you apply volition to it. And I didn't want to get rid of pain. I didn't want to get rid of the enchantment that would cause that pain if it was useful to me. But first, before I moved away from that, before I find out a way, or before I actually start getting rid of pain, I first need to find out how to use it and how it's valuable. I don't just want to get rid of things just because. I want to learn about them before I decide to discard them, just so that maybe they can come in handy later. So on October 4th, I decided, okay, I'm not moving forward because of this, so I have to figure this out. So October 4th, I wrote this. The topic stuck on my mind is the reason why I'm not moving forward is because I want to first understand enchantment. How to swiftly turn pain into power. So I wanted to figure out a couple of things. How to swiftly turn pain into power. Second, how to turn off the pain if I were to decide to do that. And third, how to induce the pain, or how to induce enchantment. So pain is interchangeable with enchantment. So basically how to control enchantment and how to induce this raw power so that I could use it later on. So with that stuck in my mind, and as I was reinforcing decision at this point in October 4th, I kind of already concluded that the origin of pain is decision. So I kind of had that on my mind, and as I was trying to figure this out, and I discovered that this is the same dynamic as pain. So enchantment works the same as pain. The basis of enchantment is also a decision of how your world should and shouldn't be. So that's enchantment. When you believe that your world should be a certain way, you're enchanted because that's your belief, and you're enchanted by that belief. And that enchantment is the decision, just like pain. And pain is, if you compare the two definitions, pain is the belief that something shouldn't happen. Enchantment is the belief that something should happen. And they both correlate with each other, because when there's pain, you believe that something shouldn't happen. It also means that something shouldn't happen, but it should happen this way instead of that way. And when there's enchantment, if something should happen this way, that means when it doesn't happen that way, it's pain. So pain and enchantment go together. So enchantment is also created by a decision. In the end, enchantment is done by your own choosing, by your own belief, your own decision. Yeah. So this is kind of what I figured out. I built on the knowledge that I had on October 1st about pain, on the idea that I developed there, to kind of and that kind of helped me develop this other thing. So I have that. So pain or enchantment. So I kind of figured out the two things, the two out of the three things, how to get rid of. No, I kind of figured out the number three, which was how to induce enchantment, and that is a decision. So now I still have to figure out how to create that enchantment into power, how to create that pain into power. So I just figured out. So with that, I kind of figured out how to induce enchantment, and that's by decision. So now I'm trying to figure out. This is October 10th. I'm trying to figure out how to turn pain into power. And this is and so I thought of a few things of how this happens, of how maybe this happens. In the first scenario, there's kind of I kind of notice as I'm experiencing things. I kind of notice I experience that sometimes that the way to create power out of pain is by breaking out of enchantment. And if that's true, then that means that I first need to be enchanted so that I can break out of it, so that I can create the power. And if I do not have enchantment, then I can't create the power because I cannot break out of it. So the power is created from the breaking out of enchantment. That makes enchantment necessary. Therefore, in order to create power, you need pain. And in order to have pain, you need to want something, so you need to be enchanted by something, so that when you want something, you can do the opposite, and then when you do the opposite, you'll create the pain, and you can use that pain to create the power. So the problem with this is that when you do what you don't want enough, the inspiration might wear out. The problem with this is that you need to be enchanted. And that if you're going against your desires all the time, then you might get used to going against your desires, and it won't be painful anymore because now you're just used to doing that. And because it won't be painful anymore, now you won't have anything to turn into power. There's a problem with that scenario. And that's why I've been trying to figure out how to induce enchantment, basically so I can figure out how to how to induce power so I could turn it into power. So how to induce pain so I could turn it into power. But then I thought about, what if maybe inspiration is not a resource that is limited to the amount of enchantment that you carry? So maybe, because the way that I saw it is that inspiration depended on breaking out of enchantment. And so first you need to have enchantment so you can break out of it. First you need to have enchantment so you could have pain, so you could break out of it, and that creates inspiration. So then I thought about, what if you don't need enchantment in order to have inspiration? And so this is where the second scenario comes in. So what if power is not created by the breaking out of enchantment, but instead power is being out of enchantment? So, and that would make sense. And the reason why I didn't think of this at first was because sometimes you feel like you're out of enchantment, you feel like you're freedom, but you don't feel any inspiration. But really, I think that it could be possible that the reason why that happens, the reason why sometimes you're free from enchantment, but you're not inspired, maybe because you're actually not free, but you're just numb to it, and so you don't really have freedom, but you don't really know that you don't have freedom. And that reminds me of a quote by Saint Germain: "The most insidious type of bondage is the one in which the prisoner is not aware of his chains." So, but what if, in order to create power is just to maintain yourself, to maintain power, to maintain yourself outside of enchantment, to maintain yourself in freedom? So what if inspiration is not a limited resource, but a plane of resource in which you can exist and persist for as long as you maintain your freedom from enchantment? This is not against enchantment, but it places enchantment on a different value. So in scenario 1, inspiration is a limited resource. Why? Because if you experience freedom too much, or if you break out of enchantment too much, or if you do what's against your will too much, if you experience pain too much, you get used to it, and eventually you'll be numb to everything because you're doing everything too much, and you just get used to it, and and you won't be inspired anymore. Because I mean that's how it is with everything. Everything that you do, you eventually get used to it. So in scenario 2, inspiration is not a limited resource because it's kind of like another plane of existence. So you're just kind of maintaining your mentality on a different level. Is kind of what's going on here. So it's not a limited resource because you're not wearing anything out. You're just existing on a different level. Therefore, freedom requires a continuous fasting against the familiarity that keeps built. Okay, so in scenario 2, it kind of explains that the reason why inspiration wears out is not because you get used to things, but it's kind of a flowing in of familiarity. Familiarity is enchantment. It's kind of what leads you to believe that the world is only a certain way. That's enchantment. And so as you're doing something, whether it's pushing against what you want or whether it's being inspired, you start getting familiarity, and that familiarity becomes enchantment because you start to think that the world should be that way, and that's the only way that the world should be. That is enchantment. And as you start building that familiarity, you start wearing out. So that's where the wearing out comes from. And so scenario 2, it says that no, inspiration is not a limited resource, but it only seems limited because whatever you do, as soon as you start getting a familiarity for it, it starts wearing out. And scenario 2 says that in order to be inspired, stay inspired, is to whenever you feel that familiarity build up, you break free from that familiarity and you try to break free from it continuously, and that's how you stay continuously inspired. So continuous fasting against the familiarity that keeps building through time via memory. So the memory creates familiarity, because that's the only reason why we have familiarity, is because of the memory. So attachment, enchantment, familiarity, it's kind of low energy. But why is it low energy? Why is it low power? Why is it weakness? Because you're limiting your reality to a certain agreement. You're limiting your reality, and you're agreeing with yourself that reality is only these limited events, these limited number of events, and you don't believe in anything else, or that it should happen in anything else, and that it can't happen any other way. And when you break free from that familiarity, that's a high energy, high power mentality. Why? Because you recognize way more possibilities, and you kind of accept them, and you accept these other possibilities, and you have to be ready for these other possibilities. You don't just feel in the safety and security of your familiar world, but now you're exposed to greater possibilities, and that you have to be ready for. So it involves more energy, more thinking, and just more readiness. So now I have a different paradigm to understand enchantment and how to turn pain into power. I don't have to depend on enchantment in order to get pain, in order to turn it into power. But it is the staying away from enchantment that creates the freedom, that creates the power. After I figured this out, I was able to experience it. I was able to know what I was doing through practicing the stone exercises. And I noticed that what I was doing was a wholesome action, or that's what it felt like when I was doing that. I felt like everything that I was doing it out of pleasure and not out of pain. It's not as a response to pain. After you get into this high energy state, it doesn't matter what happens. You enjoy everything. And there's a description for this that I've mentioned before. It's called eudaimonia. And what it means is that it's a virtuous action. An action that you do for the sake of itself. You don't do it as a means to an end, but you do it for the sake of itself. And as according to Aristotle, Aristotle describes something like this. It's when you do something, and basically everything that you do should be for itself, and that's the way to live happy, because that's the happiest way to live, because everything that you do, you're enjoying it, and you're not wasting any moment in trying to achieve something that you don't have. And so there's not a moment goes by in which you do not have what you want, because whatever you want and whatever you do is what is going on at the moment. That's called eudaimonia. And so applying volition and applying being able to turn this pain into power is basically the practice of a wholesome action. And now anything that you do, it doesn't matter what it is, it's wholesome, it's complete. So you never feel like you're lacking something. And so that's what I discovered, and that's actually what I felt. I'm not sure if it was exactly on October 10th or after that, but I felt it and I took note of it. And I called it wholesome action.